We got a big week ahead, Money Stop Mafia. He's Cole Cusumano. I'm the little bro, Steven Cusumano. This is your most important NASCAR betting stop of the day. Of course, it's the Money Stop, and we've got Memorial Day weekend, the Coke 600, the Indy 500. We have got a lot to get to, Cole. So let's splash and go, and let's get right into it. I do want to first briefly mention the fact Christopher Bell won the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro, where we saw a great show out for that race. The prior week, great bounce-back week for the Money Stop. We had a tough outing at Texas. We said that was going to be the outlier. We'd be right back at it again the next week. And sure enough, last week, or at least 2 weeks ago, the last Cup Series points race, we had 5 of the top 10, 7 drivers in the top 15. We had 3 correct over-unders, 2 correct head-to-head matchups. So this was a very successful, most recent points race for the Money Stop. And of course, here we are 2 weeks later, going into one of the most exciting weekends in racing and probably my personal favorite weekend in racing.
Oh, yeah. By far and away, my favorite race weekend of the season. Best weekend in motorsports by far and away as well. Indy 500, Coke 600. It's the longest race of the season. I just love the pageantry that comes with this crown jewel event. You know, NASCAR showing out with these beautiful patriotic paint schemes, showing their military appreciation and tribute to those who give the ultimate sacrifice and continue to serve here and abroad. Just a great race weekend. Again, there's so much stamina, endurance, and strategy that goes into winning this crown jewel event. Usually goes on for like 4.5, 5 hours. And you know me, I love as much racing as I can get. So pumped up for this race. And as you saw at Kansas, the 1.5-mile tracks are usually one of our best analytically. Texas was certainly an anomaly in that sense. So really pumped up to get things going once again this weekend for Charlotte. And kick us off here with some Take It to the Bank.
Yeah, let's take it to the bank, make you guys some bank over here. This is, there's no better sight to see. There's no better sight than the patriotic cars on the track, the red, white, and blue, the military camouflage sort of colorways as well. But this is a race that we talk about every year where it's going to benefit a driver and a team that can put a complete race together. We're going to talk about pre-qualifying odds. And we're going to learn the starting lineup at 2:40 Eastern time on Saturday, Cole. But you could win this race by starting dead last because it is a 600-miler, 400-lapper. Doesn't matter where you start. It's where you finish. And it's a test of endurance, stamina, the pit road. You're going to have to get everything, all your ducks in a row on pit road, strategy. It's going to test you mentally, physically. It's the whole 9 yards of it takes a lot to win this race. And that's why every year we see it be either a former or future champion that wins the Coke 600 because there are so many layers that go into winning this race. So keeping that in mind, here are the pre-qualifying odds. Leading off with, of course, the favorite, Kyle Larson, who's plus 500 coming off of the big win at Kansas, where he absolutely dominated that race. And then you've got a 4-way tie for second in odds. William Byron, Tyler Reddick, Ryan Blaney, and Denny Hamlin are all plus 700. A lot of those guys, or at least out of the top 5, 3 of them are former champions. And you could make the argument Tyler Reddick and Denny Hamlin have a good shot to be champions this year. So Vegas would tend to agree that this is a week where it's going to benefit the experienced and very well-rounded teams that can put a full race together. But I want to lead this conversation off, Cole, before we discuss the favorites, I want to ask you about Kyle Larson because, of course, he's running the double. He's going to try and run the Indy 500, followed by the Coke 600. So my question to you is, while he is the favorite to win this race, do you feel that his chances of winning either race are compromised by the fact that he's competing in both? So, if you're looking at him going all 500 miles, hopefully at the 500, then going to the Coke 600, do you feel that compromises his chances of winning the 600 or vice versa?
Not at all. I have no concerns whatsoever from Kyle Larson. He has proven time and time again that he is the baddest man in motorsports. Anything on 4 wheels, he's going to adapt to with ease and be competitive no matter what. NASCAR is his bread and butter, obviously, his primary discipline. And he said before the year even began that when he announced the double, his priority is going to be completing the Coke 600. So if, God forbid, there is weather that impacts us this weekend once again, he will divert from Indy and go right into Charlotte. Now, with that said, he is allocating all of his time on track to Indianapolis. So Justin Allgaier is going to be in the car practicing, qualifying for the 600, meaning that Kyle Larson will start out back once he does come for the 600 race. But with that in mind, Justin Allgaier is a champion in his own right in the Xfinity Series. He finished 13th in this race last year, his best Cup Series showing arguably ever in that number 5 car. So I think they'll have that thing dialed up perfectly. Regardless, Kyle Larson is going to be competitive, and I have no doubt in my mind that he is going to be a contender for that win come Sunday night. Just cannot wait. I'm so ecstatic to see if he can complete this double and go all 1,100 miles.
Yeah, it was probably the biggest letdown of all time last year when both races were impacted by rain and he couldn't pull it off. So this is something that is so good for the sport, so good for like motorsports in general. And Kyle Larson is one of a kind. I'm so excited to see the way this plays out, and I'm going to be completely engaged with both races. We'll get you some Indy 500 predictions later on too, but we want to take it to the bank, talk some favorites here, Cole. As I look at our favorites category, I mentioned the 4 drivers that are in a 4-way tie for the second most or the second shortest in odds. I'm going to pick a couple of those drivers as my favorites, starting with Ryan Blaney. And I was very high on Ryan Blaney entering the race at Kansas. I believe I picked him to win, and he finished 3rd place again. He's coming off back-to-back 3rd place finishes. He's had top 5s in 4 of his last 5 starts entering this week. Also had a strong running in the All-Star race as well. He's had third place finishes at the 1.5-mile tracks, and also over 120 laps led at Homestead before he crashed out of that race. So Ryan Blaney's bread and butter has been these intermediate 1.5-mile ovals, and he's a former winner in this race at the 2023 Coke 600. Crashed in his other 2 attempts, so you can't really read too much into that. He's a guy that what I'm looking at is proven he can win this race before. It takes a certain kind of driver and a certain kind of team to be able to put this entire 600-mile race together. But for Ryan Blaney, since joining Team Penske, he has had 3 top 5s in 8 starts at the 600, a 17.1 average finish, which includes those 3 DNFs. And he's had 1 more top 10 and 1 more DNF in his total Cup career, 14 starts at Charlotte in the Coke 600. So really with Ryan Blaney, I'm reading a lot into the fact that he's one of the hottest drivers in the sport right now. Coming off of 4 of his last 5 finishes have been in the top 5s, 3 straight top 3s, or what was it? Back-to-back top 3s. And, of course, he's won this race before. So Ryan Blaney feels like a very safe bet to me. And I'm going to go with another driver, as Blaney, by the way, is 10,200 in daily fantasy, which is fairly expensive. I'm going to go with a driver who has not won this race before, and that is a guy who I alluded to could be a future champion of the sport in Tyler Reddick, whose best finish career at the Coke 600 was 4th, and that came last year. So for Tyler Reddick at the 600, he has finished 6th or better in his 3 next-gen starts at this race. Top 10s in 5 out of 6 career starts in this race with a low of 14th and an average of 7.7. So you're talking about a very high floor for Tyler Reddick, and obviously a great team in 2311 that's proven that they've got race-winning speed this year, and they're more than capable of putting this full entire race together. Looking at Reddick this year, he's got 4 top 10s in 2024, including 1 of 3 races. The last was at Darlington. He had 4 straight finishes of 14th or worse, I should say, including 17th at Kansas and 21st at Texas. So obviously the flip side of Ryan Blaney here, right? He's on a little bit of a cold stretch entering this week. But guess what? You kind of get a little bit of a reset after the All-Star race, a race that doesn't count. I think that they're going to look to put that in the rear view. And again, just looking at another driver and team that's proven they can put a full race together at the Coke 600 and potentially go out and win this thing and prove that they're contenders for the Cup. Because listen, it's been kind of a 3-headed monster. You look at William Byron, you look at Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell sweeping up a lot of the wins this year. Obviously, Kyle Larson as well, 4-headed monster. Behind him, behind those 4, I should say, Tyler Reddick feels like the guy that's next in line to kind of rewrite his season and say, hey, I'm still here too, and I'm more than capable of going out there, winning races, and becoming a championship contender. And I think that starts with a statement win at a crown jeweled race like this one.
I like the Ryan Blaney call a lot. He is on a heater right now, and we've seen that this Ryan Blaney is a very temperamental driver. So when he's getting these quality finishes, it's contagious for him in that 12 bunch. And I fully expect them to have a really strong run in that badass body armor chill car, by the way. Tyler Reddick, he's a bit of a reluctant favorite for me, only because, we've spoken on it a few times this season. That 23 11 crew had been one of the best, arguably, on the mile-and-a-half tracks in the next gen. But it seems like they've gotten caught up to a bit in 2025 and even to close out the 2024 season. And you're seeing that with their results as of late. You mentioned it, 17th at Kansas, 21st at Texas. And honestly, in both those races, I don't think he was a strong contender for the win. He had a top 10 car, but he started to fade towards the end. So a bit of a reluctance there for me with Tyler Reddick. I like his value of $10,000 in daily fantasy for sure compared to the other drivers that we're going to mention. But Ryan Blaney, I like a lot. And we also have seen a lot of speed from that Team Penske and Wood Brothers team this season on the mile-and-a-half tracks. Now, for me, I want to expand a bit on Kyle Larson. But before that, I also wanted to bring up this Crown Jewel event and Charlotte itself, the Oval, has been very unpredictable, which is hard to kind of comprehend when you think back to the Jimmy Johnson and Kyle Busch era in the early 2010s, when it seems like they would win all these races. The last 8 starts at Charlotte, there's been a different winner. Among the full-time drivers, there are 9 different winners, and there's only one driver in Brad Keselowski who is a multi-time winner at Charlotte currently. So it's a very difficult race, a very difficult track, and it promotes parity. So you might see a new winner this weekend, and I think that very well could begin, diverting from Kyle Larson first off, it very well could be William Byron, who has been one of the best drivers statistically at Charlotte in the Cup Series. His value, once again, plus 700 second shortest odds for the race win. $10,500 in daily fantasy is a great value. But one thing that we're seeing right now from this 24 team is maybe a bit of a backslide at the third mark of the season. He's finished 13th or worse in back-to-back races, only the second time this season that's happened. But what's been impressive to me is how this team's been able to persevere. Him and Rudy Fugle have a great rapport. This team has been able to battle through adversity and at least get or salvage a quality finish when they've had their woes. So you're still seeing a team that has 7 top 10s, second most laps led, and second best average finish at 10.2 in 2025. Now, back to Charlotte. He's riding back-to-back podium finishes. He finished third in his last start in a career-best second place in 2023 with 140 laps led between both starts. He also has finished top 10 in half his 8 starts at Charlotte with 3 poles. So he has been incredibly fast, knocking on the door of a win at his home track here in Charlotte. He is a great pick, a great value for this weekend. But back to Kyle Larson. He won the 600 back in 2021, his only win at Charlotte. He finished 9th in 2022. He wrecked from 4th place with 26 to go in 2023. And as we all know, infamously, he did not make an attempt in 2024. But in his Cup career, top 10 in 6 of 14 starts, which I feel are obsolete stats because he has just been the best driver in the world this season so far. Series best mark in wins, top 5s, top 10s. He has the most laps led in the series by over 430. And he has
ridiculous.
Best average finish at 9.8. So I think, to put it simply, if you're not betting on Kyle Larson one way or another, whether it be for race winner, top 3, top 5 props, you are losing money this weekend. I love the entire Hendrick stable, but especially Kyle Larson and William Byron for favorites this weekend.
By the way, have we looked? Is there a way you can parlay him winning both races? I'm sure you could. I just haven't looked into that yet. I probably should have checked before we started this episode, but there's got to be a way, and I'd love to see what that comes out to be. But Kyle Larson, what?
I have not looked yet, but you definitely could.
All right, we'll figure that out. We'll figure it out by the end of the episode. But Kyle Larson, William Byron have probably been the 2 most consistent drivers all year long. I think those are 2 great picks. And that's a great favorites category between Larson, Byron, Blaney, and Reddick. So sleepers-wise, Cole, again, I'm looking at drivers that are very experienced. I'm looking at former champions. I'm looking at complete teams that know how to put a complete race together. And I'm looking at, for my 2 sleepers, Chase Elliott and Joey Logano. I know that I've said before I'm tired of the top 10s for Chase Elliott, which I am. But I think this is a race that can definitely play into that 9 teams favor because we've seen it. Like I've been mentioning, I'm getting bored of these. Oh, they had a great comeback in the race and they put a complete race together. They had top 15 speed, but they finished 10th. Well, that's the type of performance and resiliency, and that will get you a win at the Coke 600. And we've seen it from Chase Elliott before when he won in Charlotte in 2020. still chasing his first Coke 600 win, which to me feels like he's definitely due. I feel like he's got to win one of these at some point because he's had 2 runner-ups in this race before, 3 total runner-ups in 13 starts at this track, and 7th in 2024 was his best next-gen result in this race. He wrecked in his other 2 appearances here, but again, one of the better tracks for Chase Elliott, who has had a streak right now of 7 consecutive races leading laps with 340 laps led over that span, 14.8 average finish, which is on par with where they were at this point last year right now. So for Chase Elliott, who's plus 1,600 for the race win, coming off a couple of underwhelming days, he finished 15th at Kansas, 16th at Texas, top 10s in half of his other starts, and a low finish of 20th, average finish of 11.7, which is the 4th best in the sport this season. So for Chase Elliott, I'm looking at a driver and a team that can put a full race together, that is a former champion, that wants to win this crown jewel event so badly. And I'm looking at it as a race that definitely plays into that team's favor. So for Chase Elliott at plus 1,600 for the win, 9,500 in daily fantasy. He's right in that sleeper range. And listen, it's been a long time since that team's been to victory lane. So of course, they're a sleeper in spite of the fact that it is a former champion and it is Chase Elliott. I was mentioning kind of tiers before of like the top 4, and then Tyler Reddick was maybe a step beneath those top 4. I think Joey Logano's kind of in that mix as well, just with the inconsistent results. But he's been another guy and another team that's proven they can go out there and win races. He won at Charlotte back in 2015, and somehow he still hasn't won a Coke 600. So it's been 10 years since he's won at this track. I think that this is a driver and a team that, again, can put a full race together. Strategy-wise, endurance-wise, on the pits, I think that they're well-equipped to win this kind of event. And he finished 14th in his last start here. He has had 4 straight finishes of 14th or worse. Obviously, that's the bad news of his results at Charlotte recently. And not only that, he has a 42% top 10 rate at Charlotte, 340 laps led, over 26 starts at this track, which doesn't exactly grab your attention. However, he has had a 13.1 average finish and only 1 DNF in those 26 starts at Charlotte. So he's been able to finish these races, and he's coming off, of course, the back-to-back top 10s this season, including the win in 2025 earlier as well. So Joey Logano, stats career long at Charlotte don't exactly turn your head, but like there's no way Joey Logano is going to retire without winning a Coke 600. And they're in a good groove right now. I know there's a lot going on with Team Penske right now, but if there's anybody, any team, any driver that's good at shutting up the headlines and just going out there and winning when everyone is doubting you, I think it's Denny Hamlin and it's Joey Logano. There's no 2 better drivers in the sport than shutting down all of the negativity and the BS headlines and all of the distractions than a guy like Joey Logano. And he's proven he can do it this year. And obviously he's a guy that, again, looking at what he's done in his career, he's made a living off winning races like this when you're not exactly expecting him to. So give me Joey Logano and give me Chase Elliott as 2 of my favorites this week, or 2 of my sleepers that have outside chances at the win for various reasons. But I do like that they're, where they stand this week in terms of being able to win their first 600.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the crew chief and strategy angle is a very important thing to note, because obviously Paul Wolf, in my opinion, next to Cliff Daniels, is the best crew chief in the garage area. So when you have a guy like that on your pit box, you're down to have a great race in the 600 that demands a very strategic mindset. And yeah, I think you're completely right on Chase Elliott as well. This is a track where, like, before the next gen, it was like he was contending for these wins every single time they went there. And that speaks to his 3 runner-ups. Obviously won this race during the COVID season. But they're going to be a contender for sure in this one. On the crew chief angle, I think someone who's very underrated in the garage area is Blake Harris on the number 48 crew for Alex Bowman. I want to shift gears to that crew right now because we've seen Jimmy Johnson win this race a ton of times. That 48 crew usually tends to show out at Charlotte. And Alex Bowman has been very good this year. Finished 5th at Kansas. That was his 2nd top 5 this season and 7th top 10 of 2025. However, you look at his broad scope through the 12 races thus far, 16.8 average points to his boomer bust nature. And he's also finished 35th or worst in 3 of his last 5 starts with 2 top 10s in between. However, He has finished 7th at Vegas, 2nd at Homestead, and 5th at Kansas. Those are all mile-and-a-half tracks, so 3 top 10s, 2 top 5s, including a runner-up on those mile-and-a-half tracks. And you look at his Charlotte resume, he finished 9th in his last Charlotte start was his 2nd top 10 in the next-gen era. He has a lowest finish of 12th in this current car. He also has top 10s in 3 of his last 4 starts here with a career-best 5th-place finish and a 9th-place average in that 4-race stretch. So he has been one of the most consistent drivers at Charlotte over his last handful of starts, as well as in the next gen. Great value this weekend at plus 2,200 and a smoking value for DFS at $8,000. And I will tell you right now, going through and making a few lineups here, that is going to be someone that you want to have locked in there. Again, been one of the most consistent drivers this season on the mile-and-a-half especially. It's where he's kind of made his bread and butter in 2025. So I like that team a lot for this weekend. And then one that I'm going to kind of reach out here and pick on is Kyle Busch, KFB, plus 1,800 for the race win and $8,800 in daily fantasy. Kyle Busch won the Coke 600 in 2018, and through his career has a 61% top 10 rate, nearly 1,500 laps led, and a 13.8 average in 16 starts at Charlotte. In the next gen, he finished 2nd here in 2022, 6th in 2023, and 15th in 2024. Now, if you tell me right now that Kyle Busch in the next gen has a floor of 15th, I would take that all day, every day with how he's fared with Richard Childress Racing. So that's a really solid set right there through 3 races for that bunch. And we mentioned it at the top of the show. It's going to take a lot of experience to win this race, a lot of stamina and endurance. And Kyle Busch is just that at this level in his career. Also want to note that he's running the Truck Series race, which should bode very well for him on Sunday. And I know the results have not been there, but they've also been very misleading for the 8 crew, especially as of late. Misleading back-to-back finishes of 20th and 21st. He was running top 5 in the late stages of these races before wrecking at both mile-and-a-half tracks in Kansas and Texas. So I think if you're looking for a legitimate sleeper for the win, but someone who has a lot of experience and who is a former winner in this race at Charlotte, they're looking no further than Kyle Busch. I think he's going to be a great value and a great dark horse for this win come Sunday.
Yeah, I feel like he has had such awful, awful luck his entire tenure with Richard Childress Racing. It's got to swing back at some point. And they've had the speed at times to show that they can flex their muscles. And I feel like this is one of those races. A lot of the crown jewels, you kind of have to visualize what you can see happening. And I can visualize seeing Kyle Busch in victory lane by the end of this race. You know, he's dwindling on probably the later portion of his Cup Series career. And I think that there's got to be one more memorable win, and I could see it being at an event like this. So that's our sleepers category between Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, Kyle Busch, and Alex Bowman. Looking at value picks, Cole, this is where we've shined a lot this year, and especially on mile-and-a-half tracks. And to no surprise, as we look at our value picks, I'm going to go with a couple guys that have been aces on the intermediate mile-and-a-halves this year, starting with Josh Berry, who famously won at Vegas earlier this year. And in his only other Cup start at Charlotte, finished in the top 10. He finished 10th, which is huge in your only Cup start there. He had an Xfinity Series win at this track. He's a 3-time winner on mile-and-a-half tracks in the Xfinity Series. And along with his win at Vegas this year, he also finished 6th in our last mile-and-a-half race at Kansas. And he led 40 laps at Texas. And he had laps led at Homestead as well. So Josh Berry has proven time and time again, he is going to be a top 5 car when we go to the mile-and-a-half tracks. It's just a matter of, as a newer driver in the sport, can he put this full race together? And that's why he's a value, because plus 2,500 for the race win, 7,800 in daily fantasy are both very, very good values for what you're getting. But you're keeping in mind the fact, too, that, he's not a former champion. He's not a very experienced veteran of the sport, but he's a guy that's driven like one this year. I think that he's adapted so quickly to the sport. He's adapted so quickly to these cars. And I'm looking for another strong performance out of Josh Berry, because I would have never thought he would have won a Cup Series race this early on into his Cup Series career, barely a year in. And I think he's going to continue proving people wrong. And I think that he's had some of the best speed in that car of any driver in the sport at mile-and-a-half. So Josh Berry, I've got a very keen eye on, in addition to Austin Cindric. And I mentioned everything going on with Team Penske right now. Austin Cindric, plus 5,000 for the race win, 7,500 in daily fantasy. He's coming off a career best finish of Charlotte. That's the good news. The bad news is that career best finish is 20th. He wrecked out in the other two races that happened for him at the Coke 600. But again, this year, looking at the mile and a halfs, he's had some of the best speed. He's been a lot like his other Penske teammates running up front, where he finished 6th at Vegas and led 47 laps and almost won that race. He also led 60 laps at Kansas and then had a respectable finish of 11th at Kansas. The 60 laps were at Texas. But needless to say, all of that being said, he's had such good speed on these tracks. I think that this is a year where for Austin Cindric, he's starting to make these mile and a halves kind of his bread and butter. And another situation where if we're going to talk about Ryan Blaney and if we're going to talk about Joey Logano, we should be talking about Austin Cindric because the success has been team-wide for these drivers all throughout the season. And we've seen the success this year from Cindric and Josh Berry. They've been two of the most underrated drivers on mile and a half tracks, and we're not going to underrate them this week. That's why they are really good value picks going into the 600.
Yeah, no question about it. I think those are the two obvious value picks for this weekend. And, going through who all the drivers we've mentioned so far, we've mentioned the entire Hendrick stable. We've now mentioned the entire Penske stable and their alliance with Wood Brothers Racing. How about we also mention the full stable of Richard Childress Racing, which is going to be a big reach here, but I got a couple of deep values this weekend. Austin Dillon, plus 20,000 for this race win, who was a former winner in this race in 2017. He has a great value of $6,400 in daily fantasy. And I want to highlight Austin Dillon because while he did finish 22nd at Kansas, he had 3 straight top 10s prior to that, which is flying very under the radar. That includes a season best 7th place finish at Texas, another mile and a half track. And in addition to winning the 600 in 2017, he has a best finish of 9th in the next gen at Charlotte. He did finish sub 20th in his other 2 starts, but over his last 5 starts, he has 3 top 10s and a 14.4 average. Which is pretty close to his career average in 16 starts of 16.7. So for a driver in Austin Dillon who has struggled mightily in his career, Charlotte is his home track. It's been one of his most competitive tracks. He's proven that with the race win. He's proven that with a couple of top 10s here in the late stages of his career as well. And he's also running the Xfinity Series race. So getting that extra track time should help Austin Dillon quite a bit for this weekend. So I think if you're looking for a deep value for daily fantasy and speaking on the complexion of how your lineup's going to look, you're going to need somebody like Austin Dillon to back end this thing and feel confident in if you want to have somebody like Kyle Larson or Denny Hamlin or William Byron as your ace. Someone else you can include in that bunch for the back end of your lineup could very well be Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who was plus 15,000 for the race win and $6,700 in daily fantasy. Now, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has finished 7th and 2 next-gen starts at Charlotte. He did finish 31st last year in the rain-shortened event, but 2 top 10s and 3 next-gen starts is really commendable. He's finished top 10 in 5 starts here as well with a 16.8 average, pretty on par with Austin Dillon's career average at this track. He also, this is the biggest, I think, stat here for Stenhouse, nearly 98% of laps completed at this track with only 1 DNF in 20 starts. So I think when you try to look for some deep value picks, you want to look for guys who can finish these things off, complete a lot of the laps, and look no further than Stenhouse in that regard. So 2 obvious picks from your end in Berry and Cindric, 2 deep picks here for me in Stenhouse and Austin Dillon, who can very well be confident picks for the back end of your lineup in daily fantasy.
While you were talking just now, too, I went ahead and was able to parlay Kyle Larson winning both races. And as he is plus 500 to win the 600 and plus 2,200 to win the Indy 500, which honestly is shorter odds than I would have thought. When you combine those, you get plus 13,700. So if you throw $5 on that and Kyle Larson wins both races, you will win $690. If you throw $100 on that, you'll win $13,800.
Whew.
Just saying.
Best driver in the world. Best driver in the world. It's not impossible.
Bet on young money, and you can make some money while you're young. That's all I'm going to say. Potentially. Well, let's take a look now as we go through all 12 of these drivers, Cole. Our values, very good. I love your stat, too, on Ricky Stenhouse Jr. having finished almost every lap he's logged at this track, and then also Austin Dillon, obviously, having been a former race winner here. Our favorites this week were none other than Kyle Larson, William Byron, Ryan Blaney, Tyler Reddick. Sleepers were Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, Kyle Busch, Alex Bowman, and value picks were Josh Berry, Austin Cindric, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and Austin Dillon. So as we pick one per tier, Cole, out of the favorites category, I'm going to take Ryan Blaney. Out of the sleepers, I'm going to take Joey Logano. And why not make it a Penske sweep? I'll take Austin Cindric out of the value picks.
I'm going to go all bow ties for my three drivers. Favorite's going to be William Byron. Sleeper will be Alex Bowman. And then my value pick will be Austin Dillon.
Now, on that note, we like to go with big money bets. These are our favorite prop bets of the week, whether it be top fives, top tens, where, the only way you can make money is not just by parlaying Kyle Larson to, potentially in an unlikely outcome win both races. You can make some money on the shorter odds too when you look at some top fives and top tens. And as we look at some of our favorites, Cole, for this race, like the William Byrons and the Ryan Blaney's of the world, even Kyle Larson, top 5, top 10 bets are looking pretty enticing this week, especially on the top 5 side of things. What are your favorite big money bets?
I think the most money to be made from the big money bets is going to be in the top 5 finisher props, because outside of Kyle Larson, every driver in the field right now is above even payout. With that in mind, my top 2 drivers would have to be William Byron and Ryan Blaney, both valued at plus 105 for the to finish top 5. If I'm listening to this right now, I'm throwing money on both those drivers right now to finish in the top 5. I think they're both going to be locks to finish there.
Yeah, and I'm sure that their odds will continue to move closer toward the middle as the weekend goes on. I also do want to throw out there a top 10 bet for Josh Berry at minus 110. I mean, he's finished in the top 10 at, I think, every mile-and-a-half race this year. He's won at one of them this year. I believe in that team's ability to put a complete race together. They've won one already. So that would be the one I would add to what you said is Josh Berry minus 110 to be in the top 10. How about some better or worse bets, Cole? Over-unders. I mentioned we nailed 3 of these during the last points race at Kansas. So for you, looking ahead at our favorite better or worse odds, what do you got this week?
Yeah, I have a lot of confidence in the Hendrick stable. Larson's value is 4.5, which it should hit. I'm confident in that, but it's a very slim margin for error there. So I'm not going to pick Kyle Larson, but I'm going to pick the other 3 Hendrick Chevys. William Byron's prop is 7.5, so to finish 7th or better, I like that a lot. Chase Elliott 8.5 or better, I like that one a lot. And then Alex Bowman 11.5, or I like that as a over as well. And then one more throw in there that's not a Hendrick Chevy. I like Kyle Busch, who also has an 11.5 denominational value as well. I like the overs on all of those once again for William Byron, Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch, and Alex Bowman. And to jump ahead real quick, I did not see a ton of head-to-head matchups that spoke to me. The only one that I liked a lot was William Byron to finish ahead of Tyler Reddick within 1.5 spots, so within 2 spots of Tyler Reddick. I like William Byron better than Tyler Reddick this weekend, speaking on the reluctancy of that 45 bunch this season. And if you're giving me a 2-position buffer, spread, whatever you want to call it, I will take that all day, every day. And I would like to parlay that with maybe 2 of those over, under, better, worse props as well. So, to jump ahead, the only head-to-head I liked was Byron over Reddick by two positions, or within 2 positions. Sorry.
And if you're listening to this right now, you're like head-to-head and over-unders, better or worse. Where do you find these? This is an app called Grid Rival, which not available in every state, but where I am right now. By the way, I'm in New Hampshire, about a half an hour from New Hampshire Motor Speedway.
Sorry to hear that.
I'm over up. Why are you sorry to hear that?
Because New England sucks. I'll hold my tongue from saying more, but yeah.
All right. We'll quit while we're ahead there then. I did go to Fenway Park. It was unbelievable. I got to see the Mets and Red Sox there. It was a 10 out of 10 sports experience. So I have something positive to say about New England. But another positive thing is that this app works out here. Grid Rival is you can place bets if you're living in New Hampshire or Massachusetts. I believe both of them, because that's pretty much where I'm at right now. But So that's where Grid Rival is where you can find our better or worse head-to-head parlays, the ones Cole was just going through, and you can parlay those together as well. So with that being said, everyone knows where to find daily fantasy. You can do that on Grid Rival too, but you can also do it on DraftKings, which of course is the more mainstream and commercialized. So looking at our DraftKings daily fantasy lineup recommendation this week, Cole, there were a few ways you could take this. We went through 12 drivers before, and we went through all their DFS values. Trying to put these together, I think there was a lot of directions you could have went, but I kind of like the idea of a lineup that leads off with a Hendrick Chevy, whether it be Chase Elliott, William Byron. I think that Kyle Larson, as you said, is going to be a little bit steep this week, but there's several directions you can go with this week's lineup.
Yeah, so I think our rule of thumb for the money stop is like to include a lineup with all of our drivers that we mentioned in the show. And with that in mind, I have two lineups here. So one lineup has all drivers mentioned on the show. And the common denominator here is that the three drivers on the back end are Austin Dillon, Josh Berry, and Alex Bowman, who I think are a three great core of drivers to have at the back end. Spoke on Berry's success in the mile and a halfs, Alex Bowman's as well, and then Austin Dillon's a former winner and has had success at Charlotte as well throughout his entire Cup career. But speaking on the drivers that we mentioned, then you have Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, and Chase Elliott as your ace. This one I'm not extremely confident in, I'll be honest with you, just because you mentioned Logano's stats, well consistent. I think you want someone that has a better chance to finish inside the top 10. And again, you got Paul Wolf on the pit box, one of the best drivers in the garage. It's not a bad call, but I think there's a better way than having Chase Elliott as your ace in this lineup. Someone who's obviously a winner at this track before, but I would rather have somebody like a Brian Blaney or Kyle Larson, William Byron leading that off. With that in mind, you are able to get William Byron as your ace. Again, along with Alex Bowman, Josh Berry, and Austin Dillon as your three back-end drivers. Also, we're able to keep Kyle Busch in there. The driver that we did not mention that I have included is Chase Briscoe. And Chase Briscoe is a driver that has had a very up-and-down season. He's had speed in the mile and a half tracks, has not been able to close it out. But speaking on the visualization aspect of things, I could just see that number 19 car, which looks incredible, by the way. Bass Pro Shops does an incredible job with their patriotic schemes. I could see him having a very strong run in the 600. So those are our two variations. I like the one that's leading off with William Byron quite a bit better, just because it gives you a better chance to have your winner in victory lane as your ace this weekend.
Let's put our money where our mouth this year, Cole. As I do, I'm with you there. I'm not. There's so many ways you can go with that DFS lineup that I'm not completely sold, and I want to kind of wait and see how the weekend goes and how practice and qualifying and everything else goes before I lock anything on that front. But putting our money where our mouth is, Cole. I don't remember who picked first last time. Who had the first favorite pick 2 weeks ago?
I think I did.
Kansas. Okay, so I get to go first this week. All right, I'm going to take William Byron to win this race. I think that, again, visualization. I can see that 24 car in victory lane. There's a lot of great directions you could take this. There's several drivers I've got my eye on. And I think I picked Ryan Blaney 2 weeks in a row. So I'm going to go with William Byron this week.
Guess what? That was my pick as well. So we're on the exact same page. By the way, in my opinion, best paint scheme in the field this weekend with the red, white, and blue flames. Unbelievable.
So sick.
Speaking on the visualization aspect, I had that exact same thought process. I would be very surprised if William Byron does not win this race, honestly. Just speaking on the lack of track time that Kyle Larson's going to get, as well as how dominant of speed that 24 team has had in the next gen and in his career, William Byron, that is, I have very strong feelings that he's going to win this weekend. So if you're listening, put some money on that top 5 prop, put some money on the race winner prop. I think it's going to hit. Now, as far as my race winner, I think my next option was going to be Ryan Blaney, actually. Again, I just think that team is on a heater right now, back-to-back podium finishes. He's a winner in this race in 2023. And yeah, another driver that I can just visualize winning this race once again. His other teammates have gone to victory lane this year. It's only a matter of time before he does, and it very well could be once again in this Crown Jewel event. I got to look at the odds list here for sleepers. Give me 1 second.
It's like Brad Keselowski and under.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Keselowski and under. I am going to go with a deep sleeper pick here, and I'm going to also divert to you for some loose change after you give your sleeper pick. How about your sleeper pick to start the year off, and Jimmie Johnson? Jimmie Johnson making a 700th career start, former 600 winner before, rocking an awesome tribute paint scheme with the neon 84. LMC, they've come back down to earth a little bit, but they've had speed on occasion this season. And we speak on the experience, speak on the stamina and whatnot. Why not Jimmie Johnson? Give me Jimmie Johnson as a sleeper this weekend.
I feel like that should be illegal. I feel like you knew I was going to pick him as my sleeper, so you took him as your sleeper, which is also a great car, by the way. That car looks awesome this week with the victory neon yellow. How could you make your 700th start and not have that colorway on the car?
Agreed. It looks amazing. Who's your sleeper?
Yeah.
I'm very curious.
Well, since you picked Jimmy, I'm going to go with Carson Hocevar. He's a guy we haven't mentioned one time this whole episode, but again, gut check. I love what we saw from him at the All-Star race. I love what we've seen from him all year. I feel like he's one of the next guys up in the sport that kind of took me by surprise. And you kind of need like a coming out party if you're somebody like Carson Hocevar. And I know the race at Talladega, or was it Atlanta, was definitely a very public entrance for him for a lot of NASCAR fans. I just love what we've seen from him. I loved what I saw from him in the Open at the All-Star race, and just a guy that I have a lot of confidence in at this point. I like what we've seen a lot from that team driver this year, but don't sleep on Jimmie Johnson. Let me say that much.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? That was another gut call for me as well in Carson Hocevar. So we're on the exact same page. I love his tenacity. I could very well see him walking away with a top 10 finish in this race.
Absolutely. This is such an exciting weekend. We have got the Coke 600 and the Indy 500. Of course, the Coke 600 is the longest race of the year. It's going to start at 6:05 Eastern time. This is great for me because this is a kind of a yearly tradition for me. Working in minor league baseball, somehow I'm always on the road during Memorial Day weekend, whether it's in like Portland or New Hampshire, wherever. It's like a yearly tradition that I'm watching the Indy 500 during my game Sunday afternoon, and I spend the entire ride home watching the Coke 600. So a lengthy several-hour bus trip. So this is just like a yearly routine or tradition for me that I've kind of come to enjoy. It's not your typical Memorial Day weekend where you're probably going to be able to sit out by the pool and watch both races, but this is as good as it gets. Soak it all in. It happens once a year. We didn't even get it last year because the races were impacted by rain. So soak it in. This is going to be a really fun race, and I personally cannot wait for it. Both races.
It's my favorite race weekend of the season by far and away. Speaking on the tradition aspect, one of my traditions for the 600 is I like to make a nice fat steak every single year, grill a steak. Usually go in the pool. I usually have a nice patriotic USA or Liberty Brew, whatever patriotic Mountain Dew they have out. I don't think there's one this year, so I'll probably rock a Voltage. But I'll usually make a steak, hang by the pool, drink some dew. And I'm able to continue that this year. Sunday, I record a SpeedFreaks national radio show, and we were able to coordinate to where I'll be at the Lucas Oil Studios, grilling some steaks over there for myself.
Let's go,
Cody. So yeah, we'll still continue the tradition, have some steaks, and enjoy this 4.5, 5 hour race. It's going to be a good one.
Well, I want to test your newfound knowledge of all forms of motorsports I want each of us to pick an Indy 500 winner too. So I know you've been following the sport a lot closer this year than ever before. Who's your Indy 500 pick right now?
All right. So we do Beat the Freaks every Sunday where we pick 3 drivers we think are going to win. This week is Indy, obviously. They're not doing the 600. So my 3 picks were Scott Dixon, Alex Palou, and the Paisano, Santino Ferrucci. Narrowing it down between those 3, I feel like Palou is the easy answer because he's finished first or second in every single race this season, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's still searching for that oval win, though. And then Scott Dixon's obviously on the tail end of his career, one of the best drivers of all time. He's got a couple under his belt in the 500. I'm going to go with Scott Dixon only because we lost Val Kilmer, obviously, earlier this year, known as Iceman in Top Gun. Scott Dixon's Iceman in the IndyCar. So we'll go with the Iceman Val Kilmer tribute with Scott Dixon for the win.
Damn, that's an amazing reasoning right there. So you're going Ryan Blaney. Or did you get Ryan Blaney? Yeah, Ryan Blaney and Scott Dixon as your 2 picks.
Yep.
I'm going to go William Byron. What's that?
I'll parlay that.
You'll parlay that?
We'll do it, yeah.
All right. Good deal. I'm going to parlay William Byron with Joseph Newgarden. I'm going to go with Joseph Newgarden for the Indy 500, who is plus 1,200, fifth in odds this week. So, man, oh man, this is going to be fun. 2 races, 1 day. It's the 2 greatest races of the season. I would think like Charlotte may not be my favorite track, but the Coke 600 I think is my favorite race. Is that fair?
1,000%. And honestly, with the next gen car, it's not a stretch to say that Charlotte's like one of the best tracks on the circuit right now. It's my favorite race by far. 1,000%. Yeah.
So patriotic paint schemes, start to finish. We've got an amazing day of racing. And wait a minute. Am I making this up? There's another race in the morning, isn't there? Isn't there a Grand Prix or some kind in the morning?
It's Monaco F1.
Monaco Grand Prix. So
which maybe we could see our paisan and rookie of the year contender Kimi Antonelli go to victory lane. He's been great this year.
Well, we gotta make picks for the Monaco Grand Prix too. And I don't know the first thing about Formula One, so I'm going completely cold turkey here, looking at the odds for the Monaco Grand Prix. I feel like we have to make it a trifecta, because what if we get our 2 race winners right and then we didn't predict the F1 race? So you probably know more than me, Cole. Why don't you go first with your Monaco Grand Prix pick?
I'll go Kimi Antonelli, my paisan. I'll take it.
That's a good idea.
It'll probably be somebody like Verstappen, but man, or Piastri maybe, but I got to go with the paisan. Kimi's awesome.
I'm looking at all the names here, and I'm seeing that Verstappen is plus 225. Piastri is plus 100. I can't pick the favorite. I'm going to go with Verstappen. Why don't give me Max Verstappen? All right, so we've got our trifecta of 3 races on the greatest day of motorsports. So, man, this is exciting, Cole. Final thoughts here. I think that this is a week where, we've said before, I think you mentioned it at the top of the episode, we've had 8 different race winners in the last 8 races at Charlotte, or the last 8 600s, whatever that stat was.
Mm-hmm.
But, this is going to be awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm so pumped up. I just want it to be someday ready. I want to be up at 7 a.m. watching Monaco and then right into IndyCar and NASCAR. Cannot wait.
Let's do it. Let's put our money where our mouth is. Take it to the bank. This has been the Money Stop, your most important NASCAR stop of the day. We'll end like any good pit stop as we drop the jack here. He's Cole. I'm Steven. We'll see you next week as we recap the greatest weekend in motorsports. Thank you so much for tuning into the Money Stop. To everyone with Freak Nation, everyone else tuning in, wherever you are, wherever you may be, this has been great stuff. So thank you so much, and we will see you next week.